again, AI, we're just scratching the possibilities. It's almost impossible to envision where it can go, right? But I know one thing, that it's going to cause a productivity revolution like the world has never seen. The world will be a better place. And Akida is going to be a critical part about that.
Welcome to the ASX Investor channel. Brainchip is a company that is known by many, but isn't potentially understood by people for a range of different reasons, whether it's the technology, the interesting adoption curve, or the unique business model. Today, we're very grateful to be joined by the CEO of Brainchip, Sean Hehir, and we're going to be unpacking the story from start to finish to give you an insight and understanding into Brainchip, but also the broader AI opportunity, as we've seen the artificial intelligence revolution really pick up. Sean, welcome to the channel.
Nice to see you, Noah.
It is an absolute pleasure. There's so much for us to unpack, but I guess firstly, did you want to talk about Brainchip? Who is it? And really, what's that problem that you're trying to solve?
Sure. So what we do, we are in the artificial intelligence space, like you said, but specifically we're working on the edge. You know, you can't open a newspaper or a web page today without seeing something about AI. And most of that news is around large complex models and data center deployments, but the edge is really the future. And it's just emerging right now. I used a slide yesterday in our AGM that talked about the future of edge AI put out by Gartner, which puts it right in the bullseye of relevancy and productivity for the next several years. So what we're trying to do is move the workloads to the edge, which makes a lot of sense. You know, not everything has to go to the cloud. So ideally, anything that is power sensitive, needs a small footprint, can need some kind of localized learning, that's the problems we're trying to solve.
Fantastic. And obviously a unique aspect of Akida as well is the fact that it's agnostic from different types of inputs, but can you give some sort of an insight about the different types of use cases that you're potentially coming across with the discussions with the stakeholders?
Sure. Well, I would give you maybe two answers, because we had a Generation 1 product, and in March we announced a Generation 2. So Generation 1 was very close to the sensor or in the sensor. So very simple use cases, whether it was preventive maintenance and vibration analysis or simple object detection and things like that, really simple, close to the edge that you needed to get done. With our version 2, we've expanded the use cases considerably. You can do a lot more. We've actually got 3 products on one architectural platform. So the low end is called E, efficiency, for those low power ones. The midpoint is S, and it addresses a whole set of use cases. And the high-end performance, where we really shine, some brand new technologies around supporting vision transformers and something called TENS, which is temporal spatial networks. So a very broad set of use cases.
Fantastic. And just talking about from Akida 1000, obviously Akida 2.0 has been announced now. There's a range of different thoughts about it, whether it was potentially a misstep or was really the focus on a necessary step to be able to get towards this. I know that yesterday some of the discussions you had was you wouldn't have been able to get there without these commercial engagements and the commercial discussions. Can you talk about that pathway to get to Akida 2.0?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm going to clarify, because you said 1000. 1000 is our reference chip. It's Generation 1 on the IP, so the chip is there. But you're absolutely right. The comments we made yesterday is, you know, over the last year, we've greatly expanded our commercial team. We now have people in Japan, Korea, Europe, soon in Israel, Silicon Valley. So we worked a lot with our customers, and we heard a lot of feedback. And we knew we had a very solid product in version 1, leadership in power and performance, but very narrow. And they were asking us to do more and more and more. And so we responded with our second generation. So it was a very important part of our journey, which is to get that feedback. We believe with Generation 2, we have a very strong product.
Fantastic. And on that tech front, obviously you've got first in class, best in class, and you've continued to evolve that lead. But really hearing from the AGM yesterday, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, whether it's on the commercial front, the team front, building it. Can you talk about what this past 12 months, your first 12 months in charge has been, and what those key milestones that you're really most proud of?
Yeah, sure. So when I joined, first of all, I was super excited to be there, and I'm more excited every single day. So, you know, you hit on one of the milestones right away, which is, are we really hitting the product market fit exactly right? I think we were close. Now I think we're exactly right. So I'm very proud of that milestone. I think the next milestone is what I just talked about, was building a world-class sales team. I recruited a new sales leader with extensive industry experience. Couldn't be happier with him and the team that we've developed. And then the last milestone was really refining our marketing message. we're not trying to sell to thousands of people. We're selling to a select few silicon providers. I've got a world-class CMO with extensive experience in this. We've refined our message to go right to the silicon providers. We're working with key industry analysts that are influencers in there. So I feel we're right on target. Right product, right time, key message, and a good solid sales coverage.
It almost seems like an overhaul, a significant refresh of the strategy. Can you talk about why you thought it was necessary to do this and really what it's unlocked from 12 months ago to now and the position that you're really in?
Yeah, so if you heard my comments yesterday, my opening comments actually were, we came from promising technology to putting out enterprise-ready product, right? There's a very distinct difference, right? In the technology field, and I'm a long-time tech guy, I've been in the Silicon Valley for a long time and things like that. It's not unusual to have world-class technology, but then you get it productized right. So it's just part of a very solid journey, and that's why you bring in the kind of skill sets that I did to make that happen.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously there's been a lot of building, bringing them all together. Is there anything that you think is currently missing, or are you happy with the collection now and you're really ready to push forward?
Well, my job is never to be happy, right? And we're going to keep pushing forward. But I think one of the things that I'm really pushing on, and I made a comment about it yesterday, I'm really, really happy where we are right now, but we're going to continue to innovate that much quicker. I made a comment yesterday that while we're completing version 2.0, which is due this summer, we're also planning for version 3, and we're going to make major product announcements every 12 to 18 months going forward.
Yeah, phenomenal. I did want to talk about Akida 3.0 there. Obviously, I think it was the first time publicly that we've heard that discussion about it. What's so important about it? And is this coming once again, from discussions with customers and the potential market demand moving forward?
It's more of a concept right now. We're highly focused on 2.0. The thing about when I talk about 3.0 or 4.0 is to let the market know that we are not going to stand still. AI is a field that's changing every single day. It's very, very rapid, constant change. So our job is to be on top of that. So we have a very formalized innovation cycle. We work with our Perth research team, we work with research analysts, our customer feedback, academic trends, and we analyze that, and we look at what's the market trends and set it out for 2, 3, and 4 or 5 years.
Fantastic. And there is an interesting question, I guess, stemming from that. I'm sure you're familiar with the Osborne effect and the fact that potentially, orders may be withheld because future products and customers might be waiting for it. Has there been any thought about whether Akida second generation makes Akida first generation redundant, or how will that product mix play out?
No, not at all. Because if I mentioned it yesterday or a little bit right now, if you look at the 3 products of second generation, the E model, the efficiency model, is very close to Akida 1.0. So it's just really leaning in harder to make 1.0 that much better, and I'll talk a little bit what those changes are, and then expanding the capabilities. So no, there's no really pausing whatsoever. You can certainly go, and we have licensees that are continuing on with 1.0 right now.
Fantastic. Well, did you want to talk about some of those changes then?
Well, I think one of the things we hear from the market, Akida 1 was 4-bit, which much of the industry is moving towards. However, today, a lot of them are 8-bit. Now we're going to support 8-bit. And why does that matter? We still believe 4-bit is, quote, the better answer. We go 4, 2, 1, and 8. But if somebody has a big investment in models, it allows them to keep their investment and easily put on here. Secondly, there's 2 major frameworks that AI is developed in. It's TensorFlow and PyTorch. We've now supported PyTorch. It's those kind of things that just eases the adoption more than more feature function that will make a difference.
For sure. Now that you've started to get the second generation in position here, how have some of those discussions, I know you've mentioned the early adopters that might start getting their hands on the technology soon, how have some of those discussions gone, and are they starting to change, I guess, the perception of things?
Yeah, exceptionally well, exceptionally well. A lot of excitement about that product coming out right now.
Fantastic. And I guess moving on to the commercialisation discussion, I'm sure you've had many questions about it. There was some from the AGM. Maybe to frame it first up, did we want to talk about the actual Brainchip business model? Obviously, there's the license fee up front, royalties longer term, a bit of support as well, and NRE fees coming in, which are not really the main component. But did you want to just frame that so viewers who might not be familiar with it can understand that?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, you actually did a very good job, but I'll say it a little bit differently. So when somebody buys a license from us, they get a certain set of rights, design rights and or manufacturing rights. And that license costs usually 7 digits US dollars, 7 digits of US dollars or multiple 7 digits. From there are some NRE to help them get going on there and some engineering type of thing. And then as those companies make their product, we collect royalties on those products. And so we negotiate those royalty tables as part of the license fee. And as products roll out and we have audit rights, we send a bill at the end of their quarter and we collect that. And of course, when royalties come in, it's virtually 100% margin, which is a very attractive model. As over time, the gross margins of this kind of business model are very high in the 90 percentiles.
For sure. And I think what's interesting about the licenses is not all licenses are made equal. Obviously, you've got licenses potentially for product-specific use cases, such as like Renesas, or for licenses so that people are able to produce products on behalf of their customers, like the mega chips. Can you give a bit more insight or color into how that works and the way you perceive it?
Well, you did a great job right there. Again, usually there's like single-use, multi-use, built on the behalf of, and I would even say with the single-use or the multi-use, not just the chip companies can buy them, large OEMs can build them, whether you're a electronics manufacturer or an auto manufacturer. Some of those companies will choose one of those type of licenses and then control and have somebody build on their behalf as well. So multiple people can take the licenses, chip companies or OEMs.
So in terms of the ecosystems, obviously you've got a background in ecosystems. Can you talk about why it's so important and what you've been really aiming to do at Brainchip with that space?
Absolutely. So one of the first things when I came to Brainchip, I recognized we didn't have an ecosystem program. As a long-time ecosystem executive, I know how important that is in technology. No technology stands alone. It always has to have partners. You can look at any OEM or any equipment maker, any software. They're always talking about interoperability and deployment options and things like that. So we sat down and thought about this and came up with 3 tiers of partners: technology partnerships, enablement partnerships, and integrator partnerships. Technology partnerships, the goal is to prove that our technology works with other elements of a chip. So anything that you want to work with or in part of the solution, you want to make sure that it works well, it's tested, it's configured, it's documented. And so our customers who are going to do something are going to buy a processor. They could buy it from ARM or Sci-Fi. They want to know Brainchip works well with them. If they're going to work with a Prophecy camera, they want to know Brainchip works well with them. The enablement partners are really workloads like applications and models. And what does that do for our customers? It shows the performance, how well it goes, whether that's power or performance or heat. So it's a nice proof point, but it's also workloads to say, oh, I need a driver monitoring system. They have one. Not us, not we're selling it, but our partners are selling it. Or another type of workload, they'll buy it. But what it does for us, it just shows a couple things: the ease of adoption to our platform and the performance. So we're highly focused getting many workloads as soon as possible on our platform. The integrators themselves are system integrators. We take a chip. We're not in a chip business, but if you take a chip and you want to build a device and put an application, a model, we will sell some chips to do that. And all we're doing for that is 2 things: is get more workloads in the market to show how well Akida works, and or some of them may decide to develop a chip. That's our strategy around ecosystems.
Of course, it's difficult for investors to be able to see, I guess, the change in terms of some of these discussions. But from 12 months ago to now that you've got some of these ecosystems really well established, how have those customer discussions really played out, and what's that change in perception?
Yeah, customers really like that. They first of all, they're attention grabbers. So customers who are thinking building chips go, oh, we're going to use those components. Let's reach out. So it's certainly good for inbound activity for sure. But yeah, it's just the same thing I said. They're very comforted to know we have a relationship with them and that we work well. That it just removes a question. If you're selling something, you want to remove as many questions as you can, right? And so it just removes saying, oh, they don't have to worry if it works well, so they can just move forward.
Then moving on to the EAPs, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about many of them. I know, of course, commercially sensitive space, you can't provide too much colour, but can you talk about what the development pipeline would look like for a company within the EAP program and where perhaps some of them are positioned?
Again, you're right. I can't comment on the specifics of any customer engagements. We have NDAs with every single one. But, and I think some of the things in the past, we announced things that we should, or I prefer we didn't. We're a lot more quiet about them going forward right now. So we really can't get into the dynamics of where they are in their engagement.
Can you talk about, I guess, the different stages of the milestones from the progression?
On an EAP?
On a conventional, pathway.
Yeah, I mean, a typical engagement is somebody's going to start with a functionality of a product. Whatever business you happen to be in, if you're in the, I don't know, let's just say you're in the communication device business and you want certain functionality in there, you define, oh, I want this, and it has some AI functionality. Then you spec it out. Then what we call technology scouts. All companies have that and evaluate technologies. That's when they engage with us. And they'll select IPs to build their chips. So that takes a period of time. Once they choose us, They would then go into the design phase, and that takes, maybe 18 months or 2 years to build out that chip, and then of course test and then package it. It could be about a 3-year cycle.
And talking about some of the disclosure practices, I know there was some questions at the AGM yesterday surrounding them. Has that provoked a bit of thought about whether you might adjust disclosures aligned to some of the other tech companies on the ASX or continue with the practices that are going on?
We're at the board level, we're always going to examine that, but what we said yesterday is we are fully compliant and always will remain compliant. What we're trying to do is just focus on doing our job and not putting things that we don't think are necessary out there. We have other vehicles to communicate. We do PR, we do blogs, we do all those kind of things. We do videos ourselves, but we don't want to be putting things out to create any sense of sensationalism. We're just doing our job. We're just focused on creating good products and selling.
And we have seen a real uplift in terms of a lot of the marketing, the outbound, whether it's blogs, press and things like that. How have you seen the perception changing in the market for Brainchip since that's really ramped up over the past few months?
I've seen it very, very positive. Again, when you think about when I came in, it was very interesting technology. What we want, the people we sell to are very serious enterprise companies. They want to make sure that they're dealing with a serious company. So changing that perception that the product is enterprise grade, enterprise ready, that the organization is enterprise ready. We're here to stay with you, help you and succeed. You've got to look and feel like a business, like a serious business, which we are.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess building on that, of course, Brainchip is not playing in the large language model space, but we've seen the artificial intelligence revolution really ramp up, particularly from a perception level with ChatGPT, Google Bard. Has that changed any of the discussions, or is it relatively similar because at that enterprise level, they're already well and truly aware of the capabilities of Akida?
I think all it does is raise the awareness and creates a buzz, and people examine all the solutions. So I think it's wonderful, right? You can't go on LinkedIn or anything else without seeing the word artificial intelligence 20 times. So people are aware now a lot more of the possibilities. So I think it's wonderful for all of us.
And there was a really interesting quote from yourself yesterday at the AGM talking about the IP sales cycle and how obviously you've learnt about how it's taking longer, but the fact that you're not losing engagement to others, it's just taking longer than you thought. Are you able to just spend a bit of time reflecting and really expanding on that quote?
Sure, it is true, right? Particularly in this economic downturn, we have not been ever said, no, we're going to not take you, we're going to take someone else. What we have had is, yeah, you're great, but we're not going to build a chip right now. And so that's the worst that we're seeing right now. But the feedback in all of our engagements is, exceptional performance, exceptional power. We love the functionality. It's just taking time.
For sure, and of course it's difficult because you can't provide particular insights, but are you able to give an understanding of some of these engagements? Are you right at that final decision-making end, or where are some of those positioned at this stage?
A little bit all over the board, right? A little bit all over the board. I think we talked a moment ago about the length of a sales cycle and all that, so it really depends on where they are, but really all over the board. Some are more further advanced, some are in the beginning stages. But it's interesting. We have a very specific, I was asked this earlier today or at the AGM, I can't recall. How do we target? All of our sales reps have individual targets that they're developing. It's more of a business development cycle than a sales cycle. So you get to know your customer. When are you going to build a chip? And let's start talking in those conversations. Is that an engagement? Some of them very early. If someone says I'm going to build one in a year and a half, well, now's the time to engage. So we're engaging.
And I know talking about the revenue discussion is one that you must have done, of course, to exhaustion over this past period. But just picking up on it, the 40K in the last 4C, of course, it was not what was anticipated by investors, but we know that it's going to be lumpy, that, of course, it's a space that's going to happen over time. Are you able to give a bit of insight into how you guys perceive that internally at Brainchip?
Yeah, you use my word, lumpy. Until we have a cadence, keep in mind where we just started, how we started with this. New product, new sales team, out and running right now. It's going to continue to be lumpy for a short period of time until we get a cadence and get a better sense of when things are going to fall down the line. But we are highly confident that revenue is coming across the line here in the future.
And are you hoping to see that cadence in the next 6 to 12 months? Are we talking 3 years, 5 years? What are you anticipating?
I would think it's not that far out, but it's not that far in, somewhere in between them right now.
In terms of the funding discussion, of course, once the LDA capital agreement ends, there's no agreement in place from that. Are you expecting that potentially could be extended, potentially break even, or alternative funding models?
We're examining all options.
Yeah. And then more specifically on the listings front as well, we know that there's a big investment base in Australia. Of course, the base for the Home Office is now over in the United States. Is there any consideration of potential dual listings or other exposure to markets through that way?
We're very, very comfortable where we are. ASX and Australian Investors have been very good for us, so we are very comfortable where we are.
And then talking about that, in terms of the share price itself, I know Brainchip's down by around 60%. Of course, it's not in isolation. The technology market more broadly, globally, has had some real struggles. Do you have any reflections on that from a Brainchip perspective?
Yeah, and of course, we're not comfortable where the share price is right now, but if we continue to do what we're doing right now, which is focus on the product, focus on our sales cycle, the share price will take care of itself, I'm confident.
And what do you think some of the major factors that the market is really looking for to be able to look at that next uptick in terms of price?
I think what they're just looking for is more regular cadence on wins, nothing more complicated.
Fantastic. And did you have any comment? I know it's an interesting one. There's really divergent opinions on Brainchip in terms of share price and valuation, particularly because the revenue cycle hasn't picked up into that regular cadence yet. Some people say it's wildly overvalued. Some think it's undervalued. Did you have any reflections on how potentially people could consider to value a company like Brainchip?
Sure. I mean, if you look at a company like ours in an emerging market, it's a big market. You saw some of the quotes or some of the stats I shared yesterday, right? This market is very, very big and it's very, very fragmented right now. And there's, like all markets, at some point, 1 or 2 or 3 leaders come out. So depending on your time horizon, there's no question the market's here, there's no question the market's big. We intend to be 1 or 2 or 3 of those leaders. What that means in market cap, I think that's very hard to understand. But you can imagine a big market, and if there's only 2 or 3 and you're one of those leaders, I think it's a very large market cap.
And of course, you have had a lot of experience in technology organisations, as had much of the executive and the board team. In terms of the development and the scale up and the rollout of Brainchip, is this typical, atypical? How's the actual trajectory been of the company?
I think we're right on plan. And it was this, life and businesses are always in transitions, right? And if you think about the transition we just went through from promising technology to an enterprise-ready, robust organization and robust product, it was a very interesting transition, but this is very typical. Again, I lived in Silicon Valley for a long time. I'm active in smaller companies there on the side, volunteer my time and my advice. Very typical cycle.
And you talked about the 5-year plan, 1 year into that 5 years. Is that the same thing? Is it right where you'd want to be? Are you ahead? Are you behind? Where are you positioned on that 5-year
Well,
trajectory?
I'll give you the same answer. My job is to never be satisfied on anything. So I would love to see us further along, but I'm confident we're going to make our plan in the 5-year horizon.
Yesterday we saw at the AGM the remuneration report there. It did get a strike against it. Can you just provide the reflection from the Brainchip perspective on that?
Sure. I think we addressed it well yesterday, which is, we're in a very, very competitive space. First of all, the heart and soul of any company, particularly in AI, is the quality and the brains of their people. And artificial intelligence is the most competitive field in the world to recruit people today. Secondly, we're a global company. We have presence in Europe, in the United States, India, and here. And we're recruiting everywhere. We're literally outside of those regions right now. We have to pay those kind of packages to recruit the very best talent.
And so on that, of course, expenses, Brainchip is still cash flow negative at this stage, but you're spending at this stage to be able to scale up and be able to compete on that global field. Can you just talk about the strategy there and what that will look like moving forward as well?
Sure. I get the question a lot about cash burn and things like that. But if you heard the first part of our conversation, we now have the right product, we now have the right sales team, we're going to go quicker. The market opportunity, now is not the time to take our foot off. We're going to go harder and harder and harder on this opportunity. We have a plan that you heard me say it yesterday, it's out there, it's not this year, but we have a plan. We're starting to see economies in our business model where we're not going to grow forever at that pace, but now is the time to keep pushing real hard, and we're going to continue to spend as we need right now.
And there were some hard questions that came through at the AGM yesterday with shareholders letting you know their thoughts. What was Brainchip's, reflections on it, and what are you really hearing from the shareholder base?
I think, first of all, I'm very respectful of all of our shareholders. Everyone has a right to share their views, and I'm thankful for that. And I thought all the questions were done with the idea of helping us become a better company. For that, I'm very, very thankful. I didn't think there was anything that was really that hard at all. I think you said the remuneration conversation is always a challenge, but I think they understand that. They may not like it per se, but they understand it if they truly understand what we're doing here. That was probably the most challenging one. And I understand too, I'm an investor, speed is everything, but doing it right is everything right now as well. So I don't blame them for being patient. I'm a very impatient person, but I think they understand where we are right now as well.
And of course, there's been so much company activity and you guys internally know what's going on. Do you feel like there's a misalignment in terms of what's happening internally in the company and the sentiment or the perception from the outside?
There can be, but I think that's part of our job. Again, communications is a two-way street. We have a big responsibility to communicate. And if you heard the theme of the AGM yesterday was, let's be truly honest what happened. Let's be truly honest of where we are in our journey. Let's not try to make this something where we're not. We were very, very honest. And I'm very honest on our progress and our lack of progress. But this is what I keep saying. We're doing the right things. And I think that's truly honest, and it's just a matter of time.
And so in terms of lack of progress or not being as fast as you would have thought, what are some of those big areas that you think have the biggest areas for opportunity?
Well, I think we're addressing them all right now, which is, again, having a product that hits a broader use case, having a product that makes it easier to adopt onto our platform, getting the right sales coverage in there, refining our marketing message. These are all business fundamentals. So I don't ever try to overcomplicate things. It's all about focus and execution.
You have a 5-year plan, 1 year into that, 4 years to go. What does success look like to you? If you're casting your crystal ball out there in 5 years' time, what would a really successful Brainchip look like?
Well, obviously we'd have regular cadence, we'd have our licenses, we would have grown to the level that I committed to our board that we would. But I also wanted to see that we're emerging as a standard. Standards take a decade, right, to come out, but we should be well on a path as a leader in that market. We don't want to just be a participant, we want to be a leader. And we want to be a large sustainable company. My goal is to build a large sustainable company that goes on for many, many years.
And you're positioning well in the edge AI space, of course, waiting for that real adoption moment. What do you think potentially some of those inflection points might be like at that sector level to really see that rapid snowball pick up pace?
I always, like all technology adoption, usually it's one or two events that make it. Again, I've been through a lot of technology cycles in here, and they always start in centralized and they go to decentralized, where you start with mainframes and work down to minis and things like that. But even today, you can see the pushback on clouds. Take it away from AI. Everything was going to the cloud. Now many companies are saying, I don't think so much, right? We want to have that down there. Secondly, I think when I talk to cloud providers, some of the major cloud providers that are out there in the market, they have a vision of a distributed workload, working collaboratively with edge players, because it's just best for the customer base. Having the right tool for the right task. It doesn't mean everything has to be a cloud. Why would you do that? Put everything at the right tool. Some work should be done at the edge, and even the cloud providers agree with that.
We've talked about bringing the building blocks together, and we've of course talked about it at the executive level. You've got the sales teams in place, but at that board level as well, there's a real combination of incredible talent, great experience in the space. Can you talk about what that really unlocks for you and the key personnel there that are going to make that difference?
Yeah, great question. I think we have a world-class board. We recently added Zion Lee, a senior technical fellow from Texas Instrument, a tremendous addition to an already really solid board. They're tough. They push me really, really hard. They hold me accountable, but I also use them as a resource. I think the good relationship between a CEO and a board is them pushing me, but I can get advice from them. So I think our board, I put it up against any board in the industry.
I think people around the world would be surprised at the rapid development of artificial intelligence with things like ChatGPT, but it's going to be such a fascinating and different future. Can you talk about what that future might look like, and of course how you feel Akida could be able to play its role in that future?
Yeah, again, AI, we're just scratching the possibilities. It's almost impossible to envision where it can go, right? But I know one thing, that it's going to cause a productivity revolution like the world has never seen. The world will be a better place. And Akida is going to be a critical part about that. Again, I think I touched upon that in some of the other conversations we had. Not everything will go to the cloud. The ability to have productivity local, it's going to change the world.
And of course, building a company, it's never an easy task, particularly from Brainchip. You've come all the way through. You've got an incredible group of people there now. Can you talk about what motivates you as an organisation and personally why you've taken up this mission and why you want to make this difference?
Yeah, it's interesting. We recruit people all the time, right? That's part of what I do here. And sometimes we win on the economic factor, but oftentimes, we just hired somebody that had 7 job offers and we were the lowest pay. They came because they want to be part of something so interesting, so dynamic, with a large possibility. I'm no different. I came here, I saw the large possibility of this, I see the goodness of the people, the possibilities of this technology were endless. Now that I'm here, what motivates me so much is the conversations we're having. I have a responsibility and obligation to our shareholders that I take very, very serious. I've got a team, a wonderful team on this organization. I have a responsibility to do my very best to help them. And then, of course, I take my customer responsibilities exceptionally serious. So what motivates me is trying to make sure all of these people are incredibly well served.
And I'm sure when you did come to Brainchip, of course, you would have been looking around at different companies. You've got a wealth of experience in Silicon Valley. You touched on it a little bit there, but what was it about Brainchip and the Akida opportunity that stood out to you?
Well, it was a couple things. First of all, I did look at the technology really, really hard. And being a veteran of Silicon Valley, I have a lot of connections, and I really leaned on them to check it out. And they came away and said, we have something very special and unique. That's not always the case, but that hit the first box. Then I met the team, and I was really impressed not only with the quality of the people, but their dedication and focus and their desire to really work hard to change the world. And then lastly, again, was when I talked to the possibilities of some potential prospects and existing customers, they could see the potential. I was like, how do I pass in this tremendous opportunity? And it really, quite frankly, I'm very, very fortunate that the board gave me this opportunity to take this role.
It's been a fascinating journey so far. Of course, Brainchip's got a big, passionate investor base. Did you have any final reflections to share with them?
I would simply say thank you for your support. Watch us closely. There'll be a lot of interesting things happening in the next couple of years.
And key milestones to watch out for over those next few months or that next few years' time frame?
Watch us to make sure we make the product announcements we said. Watch us for the cadence of our licensees as they come in.
And the final question, what do you want to be judged on if in 12 months' time from now at the next AGM, what are those things that you do want to be judged on?
I want to be judged on doing the things that I just said, focusing on the fundamentals. Let's get the product out like we committed to at the end of this summer. Let's have a very clear vision of our next generation product. Let's get some licenses across the goal line. I just don't want to overcomplicate it. Just keep it on the simple fundamentals of a good business.
That's Sean Hehir. It's ASX BRN. Thank you so much for your time and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you, Noah.
Pleasure.